start. Yeah.
All right. Today we are going to have a conversation about philosophy of YouTube. And yeah, let me ask you, Bruno, like, what have you learned from your experience on YouTube for the last year since you started updating videos?
It's interesting. I feel that I feel like I'm just scratching the surface so far, because I haven't started that long ago making videos. Yeah, about 1 year, and I wish I had gone into YouTube sooner, because I think it's a great tool. It's a great tool for it's not just philosophy, it's or just talking with people. I think it's a great tool for everything. It's a great tool for pursuing the things that you're interested in. And I haven't dedicated as much time as I would have liked to YouTube in this past year, but it was a start. It was a start. Yeah. So I think it's a beginning, and hopefully I can continue on this journey. And we met through YouTube. So I still don't know how you found the podcast that I was doing with the philosophy club that I have, because nobody watches those. But hopefully this next year we'll get some more viewers. But it's crazy that you from Russia, you were able to find us.
I typed philosophy.
But I'm glad you did. You finding you, Vladimir, was probably the greatest thing about YouTube this year. So.
That sounds flattering. Yeah, I typed the philosophy of entertainment. I remember it was the topic I tried to search, and I found your conversation when you discussed humor.
Right.
Yeah, and actually, this was what I was looking for. I mean, I thought about participating in philosophical discussions, and usually people who or channels who have lots of subscribers and some famous people, they do not interact with people who do not have many subscribers and who are not famous.
Yeah,
it's kind of tendency here on YouTube. And yeah, but for me, I guess what was important is not to get some viewers or a big audience, but rather have real conversations.
Sure. Yeah, it's I think what we do is a little bit unusual, right? Because YouTube is usually, it's you produce content and people watch it, right? That's what that's about. But in the philosophy club, the philosophy club podcast, the channel, it's more like a continuation for me of those conversations. Are a continuation of what we're doing in person, which is getting together and talking. So it's interactive. People can, not that people do that much, but some people have joined just like from listening to YouTube and finding us and then joining a conversation in the future. I mean, we've had a couple. You're certainly one of the examples, but I think there's a couple of other people, at least one other people, David. So I find this, and it's just the beginning, but I like this idea that you have this club, and people can watch us on YouTube, but they can also join us if they want to have conversations, so which is what you did and David did. So it's like an interactive format.
You say it's primary creating the content and sharing it with people. But actually, for me, I view it more as an opportunity to store my experience. So
I see it that way as well, to a certain extent. Yeah. So I think we understand, not that we understand each other, but like I think we see it in a similar way as well, because that was probably what, I don't know if it was the main reason, but that was a big reason why I wanted to do the conversations on YouTube. Obviously it was because of the pandemic. We had difficulties meeting in person and all that, but that was an opportunity to try YouTube, which is an opportunity to record, right? Record what are you doing. So it bothers me to have conversations and then you can never revisit them again, right? obviously that's the norm, right? Like as a
Mhm,
person,
mhm.
it's not like you have conversations and you record them. That's not how it works. But it's interesting, the idea that you can have some conversations and then listen to them again in the future, you
Yeah,
know?
and even if you think about it in the long run, you may imagine that if you're doing it for 20 years or for 30 years, you in fact have your entire life recorded through various conversations, and you see the entire evolution of yourself as a person. Like, what were the topic you discussed, like at first, how your consciousness evolved on these topics. And yeah, for me, every conversation is like an experience. So in every new conversation, it's a continuation. Sometimes they're related to each other, sometimes
Yeah.
not, but mostly when you zoom out and then look at it from, I have in mind to rewatch, for example, all these podcasts which I made at like at particular time, like for example, to take a year. So next year, after like making maybe 100 podcasts or I don't know 50 podcasts, I think it's going to be very interesting to watch them all at once. So to find
Yeah.
a couple of days or a week and do nothing but just watch these podcasts and see what was going on during the year. Since it's not just a conversation about particular topics, you also like you incorporate lots of your personal experience into these conversations, your language, your ideas, some, some accidental things. if
Yeah, for sure, man. For sure. Yeah. It's cool. Yeah. It will be cool. That is so I like that how you're thinking about this long-term project. And it's a cool project to have this collection of your thoughts.
Yeah, recently I last week actually I took my first video, which I recorded
Uh,
in English, and I decided to correct it. It was just terrible. In every sentence, there are five mistakes, and I wrote it down. It's just 4 minute video. I wrote it down first, everything I said, and then I just shortened it and made it kind of uh, coherent, since it was just I think if you will listen to it, you'll not be able to understand what I was talking about there.
right.
But then yeah, I spent probably an hour or a little bit more doing that. And then I was thinking, oh, what if I just take all my videos, and by the way there are 1,000 videos for about 1,000 videos, and I
Wow.
just go slowly day after day just working on my mistakes and correcting all these videos and seeing how like these ideas which I came up with gradually were evolving. You should just
Yeah, no,
going.
that's a lot of work. That's a lot of
Yeah,
work.
but it's like if you think about it as just a small exercise, it's not just you focus on it and you do it like 5 hours a day. It's just 10-15 minutes a day.
Yeah.
So you go there, you watch a video, you try to analyze it, you try to figure out your mistakes, what you said, what you didn't say, and yeah, for me basically it's like the work on language. Since all these videos, it was just attempts to study the language, to talk aloud and see then like how I'm doing that.
No, I mean it's certainly a great way to improve the language. Yeah.
Let's take some topics which we discussed this year. Like, what was the most fascinating topics for you, and what have you learned from these conversations?
Most I'm just gonna pull up the my YouTube here. But we've had lots of interesting conversations. Let me just quick look at the some of the conversations I've had here. Okay. So yeah, we started I'm looking at the conversation. We started in a way that wasn't I didn't I wasn't like structuring it super it wasn't very focused at first. There wasn't like a topic necessarily for each conversation, at least not a clear one. I think, we had a good conversation about consciousness.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, we had some good conversations about technology as well. If modern technology affects our lives in a positive or negative way. I like talking about that. Then by the time you joined us, yeah, we were going on a phase that was a little bit more abstract, I guess. We talked about courage, hope, war, freedom, religion versus philosophy. I think our conversation about social media was a good conversation. Um, yeah, those were some of the good conversations. We talked about racism, political and police brutality, universal basic income. That one got a lot of rage from the internet.
Hmm.
Is capitalism obsolete? That got a lot of rage from the internet. Um, I like talking about morality. We talked about the morality of war, the morality of work. Talked a little bit about nation building. So very disparate list of topics. Very different topics. But I think I like this idea. I think we had good conversations on these topics. It's always good to discuss things and try to have a good discussion about important topics. So that was the format in the first year. Yeah.
Have you changed some, the way how you handle these conversations comparatively to what you're doing now and what you did before, like at the beginning? You said there were like at first there were no topics,
Yeah.
right?
Well, I think one of well, there were two main differences. I think in the beginning, yeah, I didn't have a specific topic for each conversation, and sometimes we still do that, but most of the times now I try to have a specific topic for a conversation, just to at least to start with that topic and give it a more definite structure, more like talking about a specific theme, a specific topic. And I think that makes the conversations better for this format that we have, which is we usually have group conversations. And also another difference is that when we started, it was not a lot of because I organized philosophy conversations, discussion clubs in Minneapolis, but it's funny because the group that you have like in person doesn't translate into YouTube, doesn't
Hmm.
translate into podcasts. They don't want to do it, like I had lots of people that would show up to the meetings, and they still ask me, when are we going to do meetings? We
Hmm.
haven't done them. So, and actually Minnesota is actually we're doing very badly with COVID right now.
Hmm.
We're basically one of the worst places in the United States. People just completely ignored like that COVID was going on for
Hmm.
the past 2 months, and now there's COVID again, and there's COVID in a lot of places. So it's a shit show in Minnesota right now. Um, but so I don't think we're going to be able to get back to in-person conversations anytime soon. But in any case, it seems like a long time ago that we even did, and it was over a year ago that we did our last in-person conversation. But it doesn't translate well. The people that wanted to talk in person are not necessarily interested in talking in the podcast. and
Hmm.
and what we did throughout this year, we've developed a group of people that are interested in having online conversations, and it's a very stable group of people, unlike the in-person meetings. That was a bigger group, right? Like we had conversations with 20-25 people, and there was a lot more a lot more people coming in, and people coming out, going out. So it was a lot more fluid in terms of the participants. online, it's like the people that want to be part of these conversations, they tend to be pretty stable, and it was interesting because we've been able to develop some sort of like group dynamic and get used to each other and having these conversations together, get used to having these conversations together. So it's good.
Mhm. What do you think people who willing to join an offline meeting don't want to go online?
I think people are scared of committing to having these conversations. It's different because in person you can just join, you can say whatever you want,
Mhm.
and that's it. It's like joining an internet chat. Internet chats, it's even worse. You can basically insult the other person. You can say, show me your, like you're saying, like your genitals or whatever. But it's in person. It's kind of like, it's not like that because you have social norms, but you can also like show up and just have a conversation about whatever and say whatever you want. When you're on YouTube and we're recording it, I don't think people are comfortable to say that. Like, people are kind of aware that this is being recorded, even though it's not being shown on television, and not, it's not like hundreds of thousands of people are watching or anything, but they're still aware that they're being recorded, and you need to have a certain type of commitment, like, not because they want to say inappropriate things, but people are not necessarily ready to sit down and to tell other people like what they think and be recorded. That's a different type of conversation. It's like you're stating things that you're willing to have people listen to, and that's different than an in-person conversation.
It's kind of
Because when you're in person, only one person or maybe 10 people in a group are listening to you. But on YouTube, it's like, you don't know who's going to listen to you. Maybe someone in 10 years from now will come across a video, right? Like,
yeah,
you
but
have no
still
idea.
it teaches you to speak in a certain way. I mean, yeah, on the one side you may say that you can't be as free as you can be in a conversation offline, but on the other side it restricts your let's say your freedom, but still you can learn, like you can learn to use certain expressions and you know to be
I
to
think it makes you a better communicator, because you have to try to learn how to communicate effectively.
Mhm.
And it might not be a fast learning process. I'm still going through this learning process, certainly, but it's a very unpleasant thing, and you've experienced this as well. I think everyone who's done YouTube videos has experienced this, if not everyone, almost everyone. But you go back to your video and you're like very unhappy, right, with what you said
Mhm.
and how you said it. So after you do that, like, I think every time it's in my mind. It's not every time because I forget, but that I'm on YouTube, because I do it, every week. But I do think about it. I do think about, like, hey, you need to communicate in a better way, right? You can't just like ramble,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like,
It also forces
that's
you
something that's going to embarrass me just listening to myself, right? Let alone other people. So I try to be more focused in the way that I communicate. Whereas in person, you can. I mean, I was the organizer a lot of the times, so I had a little bit more responsibility because people were listening to me. But at the same time, it was a very informal group, so I could do whatever, ramble or whatever I wanted to. I didn't need to listen to myself afterwards
Mhm.
and be embarrassed by myself. So I think on YouTube you start getting a little bit more self-conscious, and you try to be more clear about your ideas.
It kind of forces you to learn more,
It
so you know
forces you
that
to learn, yeah.
if you continue recording these videos, if you do not give up after watching yourself and being, oh man, that's so terrible, So if you continue doing,
which I wanted to, but at the same time, I mean, who cares? You got to keep going.
yeah. Okay. Any strategy? Do you have any strategy for developing your YouTube channel? Maybe some plans, or some things which you can do to
I don't
attract.
have a strategy necessarily, but I want to keep doing the conversations, and I want to keep doing it on a regular basis. I
Mhm.
need to be a lot better at just publishing the videos, like taking care of the channel, like I don't take care of the channel properly, but and that's certainly something that I need to work on. But I think certainly it's something that my main strategy, at least for the next, and the next like 6 months, the next year, is to try to have regular
Regular
conversations,
conversations. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and try to keep evolving as people, and maybe get some more other people to join us, in the process. Not a
Mhm.
lot of people, but have some new members come in every once in a while, just like you came in, and like everybody came in. Like the group that we have now on YouTube, that I talked to on YouTube, is pretty much people that came in for podcasts.
Mhm.
Like I said, people that like to talk in person, they're not necessarily interested in doing podcasts and being recorded while they speak about some. Look, we speak about controversial topics, right? It's not like we're just speaking about Rousseau or Kant, like that's not what we do in our conversation. We talk about different topics, and sometimes they're about topics in society. It's not
Mhm.
about like abstract stuff or formal philosophy. It's really about, you know, like like when you ask, it's very unusual, right? In the United States, you ask people to sit and talk about, not all topics are that controversial, but let's say racism and police brutality. We had a podcast on race. Like
Mhm.
people don't talk about these things openly and get recorded, like that's not a normal
Mhm.
thing to do, like it's any topic that we talk about. Also, we try to express personal views, like what we really think, not, oh, it could be argued that that's, bullshit. So, I feel that we try to express our intellectual vision, our intellectual ideas. So, I mean, you're liable for that, you're liable for your ideas, like
Mhm.
in an intellectual way, right? Because and that's an interesting thing about recording conversations and about YouTube, is for people to, you are responsible for what you're saying, like that's why you think you have to try to justify it, but there's a certain ownership, of your ideas, that in I'm sure this has happened to you because you have discussion clubs, but in person you can even, like, someone can even tell you, oh no, that's not what I said, even though they said it
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
uh,
Yeah,
uh
when you're
10
recorded.
minutes ago,
Yeah.
and you're like, no, that's not what I said. Well, that is what you said. You're not admitting, that you said that. On a video, you can't do that. People just need to scroll back 10 minutes, right?
Mhm. So you're focused on the creating of the content, right? It's not about trying to get it. Well, it may be about trying to get attention, but now mostly, as you said, for the next 6 months or a year, you are going to try to improve the quality of your content.
Yeah, I think I'm more interested in the quality for now. I mean, maybe, of course you want to grow the channel and all that, but frankly, I mean, I have other stuff going on in life, so
Mhm. So
it's
YouTube for you is not just kind of the main thing, right? Just in it's something that you can do. It's like a hobby, right?
yeah,
YouTube
yeah,
channel.
it's a hobby, yeah.
Mhm. How much time do you spend now, like on on YouTube?
Not a lot of time. I want to spend more time. Right now, it's usually just during the week. We have a conversation, so I have to
Mhm.
do a little bit of preparation for the conversation, in terms of organizing and maybe preparing some topics, and then we have the conversation. So So
So
it's not a
basically,
lot of
uh,
it's not a lot of time right now. I mean,
mhm,
I want to spend a little bit more time.
mhm. Do you study something related to YouTube, like maybe some algorithms or how certain, you know?
Not really. I mean, to me, it's still YouTube is still a mystery.
Mhm,
how how it all works. It's still a mystery. Yeah. To be
mhm.
honest with you, yeah.
Have you noticed some changes in your life after you started recording these videos and publishing them on YouTube? Like
Mm,
it's been a year, right?
yeah.
And there have been there some changes that you
Well,
can
not some changes. I haven't become famous or anything like that. But or
no, maybe
rich.
in your like you're talking mostly about philosophy, right? Here on YouTube,
Yeah.
and
It, it's
maybe you
it
just
can.
improved your understanding of certain philosophical topics, or maybe you improved
Yeah,
yourself.
yeah. I've improved my understanding of philosophical thought. Every time you talk about something, you improve your understanding a little bit, right? So, um, I try to improve my understanding of topics, and I've noticed that it has helped me become a better communicator
Mhm,
online on video. So I've also become more comfortable. I still don't like listening to myself or looking at myself on video, but I've become more okay with it.
mhm,
And it's something that I'm certainly somewhat proud of, the fact that, we're having these conversations and that we've been doing them regularly, and that we talk about important topics, and that we, to the best of our ability, we try to explore them in a fair way intellectually, and I think that this is something that is good. I think that is good. It's not always that people have real intellectual pursuits. It's not a People don't often have real intellectual pursuits after a certain age, after they leave school or whatever, like, especially these days, people, because I was just talking about it with a friend recently, and this is certainly applies to me. Well, that's actually what we're talking about. uh, we're talking about how difficult it is to read in
mhm,
this day and age. It's very difficult to read because, like, it's so difficult to read when you have a television, you have a computer, you have smartphones. It's incredibly, like, because it retrains your brain essentially, and you, like, just sitting down and reading a book, it's become very difficult. So intellectual pursuits we've become, it's a little bit like a new world, like a brave new world, right? It's the age of the internet has changed, not society necessarily. It certainly has changed society. No, actually, I take that back. It has changed society, but it has also, that's not what I mean here. What I mean is, like, it has changed the way we interact with information.
mhm,
It certainly has changed society, but it has also changed the way we interact with information. Because before it was a lot slower paced. Now it's information and us, there's a constant back and forth, like, and not for the good, better, for the worse.
why do you
But
think it's for the worse?
we're, I mean, unless you're a very special case, Vladimir, but most people, you know they just get distracted by things, and either they're at work or something,
Mhm.
or they're kind of distracted, constantly distracted
Yeah,
in
but
their
maybe
personal lives.
that's what they're looking for, right? So not everybody on YouTube looks for some meaningful content. Some people just work
Yeah.
entire week and just they come home and just want to watch something entertaining.
No, yeah, no, it's fine. And this is not a moral criticism of any sort.
Mhm,
It's just I personally, I don't think that's good, because people are like sort of intellectual zombies, they're always distracted with stuff. They don't have a clear thought, they
mhm,
don't have clear minds, we're always distracted with something. We can't even go to the bathroom without, like, looking at our smartphones,
mhm.
it's very difficult to be focused, to not be distracted.
Yeah,
and
yeah. I
it's
like actually,
difficult.
I like your format. Like when you talk for a couple of hours, it definitely requires a big span of attention, big attention span.
Yeah.
And as now we can see in TikTok, for example, or some platforms like that, people just watch videos for which are shorter than 1 minute, and to ask somebody to watch a video which lasts for an hour or even longer, for many people it's very hard. I'm not saying that for everybody, but still
It's
it's very.
it's very hard. Yeah, I certainly
but
know that.
but
Yeah.
when you make these videos, it gets much easier for you to learn to focus on, like to watch other people talking for hours. It's like reading a book. You see that when you read a book, you may just dedicate 5, 10 hours, 15, 20 hours to get from the beginning to the end. And here, when you watch a video, if you can develop this mental capacity to
Yeah, I
focus.
like that analogy. Yeah, I like that analogy. Yeah, it's like a podcast or a conversation, online conversation like this. You know, like a video conversation is. Yeah, it's a little bit like a book. You know, it's a little bit like a book. It's not. You don't get it. You don't get everything right away, right? You need to put your time into that thing and kind of interact with it for a while, and then you know you'll get the thing that you're looking for, but it's not something that's going to happen in the first minute, like a
Yeah,
TikTok
yeah,
video.
yeah.
It takes
Sometimes,
time. It takes
yeah.
time. Yeah.
Sometimes I've noticed that, if you just want to get something, some conclusions, or whatever, you need to get through this boring part. Like it may be 50%, it may be 70% to just watching something, you do not understand what's going on, but then
Yeah.
finally you just, there's some insight, and you, wow, this now all this 70%, or you may watch a video for 2 hours, and the first hour may be boring and you don't understand anything, but then suddenly you figure something out, and the entire hour it just highlights, it just gets, you kind of, you see, it wasn't a waste of time. You just had to get to this point to understand what had been said before.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, for sure. Yeah, I agree with that. For me, I feel that I have a little bit more, just like you do. Anyone who's a host or an organizer, we have more responsibility in the conversation, and that's actually the hard part, in the conversation, because I don't have necessarily a difficult time like in a conversation participating or listening to people, but it's not so easy to be the organizer, in a
Mhm.
conversation. Like and that is something that I still struggle with, and that I need to get better at. You need to be aware of like where the conversation is, where the conversation needs to go. It's kind of a difficult skill to have, like to develop, um, especially when we have more than one person. It's easier if you're just talking one person, but
Mhm.
not that it's easy, but it's easier when you're talking to several people. You're a little bit like a quarterback. You need to kind of know where people are, like you
Mhm.
need to see other people, understand where they're at in the conversation and kind of like bring them together.
Mhm.
And it's difficult when you have 4, 5, 6 people. It can be difficult. So yeah, that's something I need to improve on.
Was it easier for you to run an offline speaking club, or?
Yes, it's easier because you don't have to listen to yourself afterwards. you know
Yeah, but meaning like, to in terms of these qualities, in terms of these skills, like
I think it's I think
in terms of how do you feel during the conversation?
yeah, I think it's easier in general, but it has different challenges. It has different challenges because in person I had to deal with more people,
Mhm.
so that in a way is harder, but also I wasn't expecting the same kind of the commitment from people.
Mhm.
Like when you're in a podcast, you're like in a closed room, being watched by people. You don't
Mhm.
see the people that are watching you, but you're being watched. Like some people, if they're not watching you now, they'll watch you in the future. Somebody will ever, even if it's just one person, someone's going to watch you. So you are basically in a closed room with 4 or 5 other people or 6 other people, and you need to make that work. Whereas in person, it's a little bit, it's not, unless you have an audience, people will have a good time. People will have a good, if you're like a decent host, people will have a good time, because you'll introduce topics, you'll kind of like moderate a little bit, and people are there, they're looking at each other, they can like make gestures with their hands, maybe you'll get some food afterwards. It's the bar is lower, and people are more participative. But online, it's just about the conversation. It's just about the conversation, and it's there are no, it's harder because of that.
Yeah, it's also harder to make people talk online, right? When if they feel good when they are in a room with each other. Online, as you say, it feels kind of, you're in one room and lots of people are watching, even though they're not watching right now, but maybe they'll see it in the future. You have this sense, this something in your mind, and it's much harder to be authentic in this environment, since you like lots of your hidden fears and defense mechanisms start working. And instead of just saying what you want to say, you just say some irrelevant thing, and then you get embarrassed, and then you start. I've known, especially at the beginning when I joined your conversations, I remember just it was so like I felt so terrible during the first few conversations, but then I watched them again, and I was thinking, well, it's like I make mistakes, but it's still okay. It wasn't as terrible as it felt. And gradually, again, after a couple of months, it feels almost natural. So you get used to people, and there's no this feeling of pressure.
Yeah, it's like I didn't know that it was so difficult for you. I think I felt like you were having, I was happy to have you, like I felt that you're having a decent time. But it's also like a brave thing to join. Like I didn't have to do that. I didn't have to join a group that wasn't a group that I created, like with people from completely different place, and try it a language that you had never joined. I don't think you hadn't joined a English speaking group before, right?
Well, just speaking clubs here in our town.
Yeah, but not like people
online. No.
Yeah. So it was like, yeah, it's a brave thing to do what you did. Also, like you just ask, hey, I like this conversation, can I join you guys? So that's like really brave of you to do that. And I'm glad, I'm glad you did. And I'm glad you stuck around, even though you weren't so comfortable in the beginning. But yeah, I'm glad.
Okay. Let me ask you about this question. So what would you do if you would have an opportunity to start your channel from the beginning, like exactly at that time? Like, would you change something?
No, I the way I see it, every time is an opportunity to change again, to start from the beginning again. It's I wouldn't necessarily, change much. Like I don't,
Maybe some topics you wouldn't like. Maybe you create a better structure and think through certain topics beforehand.
Yeah, I think, but that's still something that I can do. But yeah, I would agree with that. Like I'm still trying to have a better structure. Every time try to have a better structure, to try to have better topics. I think it's those are certainly like that's a quest that I have. Always have better structure, better topics, better conversations. It's difficult for me. It's difficult to obviously when you do like a project like that, you have to make sure that you're able to do that, and do also the rest of the thing that you have to do, the rest of the things that you have to do in your life, so it's challenging like everything else in life. You have to figure out how to put time and effort into this while also doing your other things. So that's the biggest challenge.
Mhm. I remember when I joined, you did some conversations, not just podcasts, but also like one-on-one conversations
Yeah.
with Jesse, with another guy. Then I
Yeah.
suggested to do conversations, and we've done 16 conversations. Why did you stop doing them?
Mostly because of time, the time and effort that I needed to put into it. Like I wasn't ready to do it.
Mhm.
I mean, I was ready. I thought I was ready, but then, like I said, there's other stuff in my life. Like lots of things. So it was just a matter of what do I want to do? What do I want to focus on? And
Mhm.
and I just couldn't focus on them. But I would like to revisit that format. It's something that you're doing very, very well. Having a one-on-one conversations. That's what I wanted to do, but I kind of not failed at it, but I didn't keep up. I would like to go back to that though. I would
Mhm.
like to go
I'm
back to
thinking,
that.
I'm thinking now about just looking for people who study philosophy, like on various other channels, and
Yeah,
having conversations with them. But I'm thinking, not just stupid conversations when I ask some random people, but first watching their videos, like
yeah.
for 5-10 hours, maybe reading their books, then having a conversation, and then inviting them to the group conversations.
Oh yeah, that's
No.
that's a great idea, man. I think that's, yeah, and I've been thinking about something like that as well. Um,
There's so many people who do philosophy in this way, like especially on YouTube, you just see like whenever every week I study a new topic, and
yeah,
whenever I type it on YouTube, like for example, philosophy of desire, or philosophy of whatever water,
yeah.
there's so many channels, so many new people, and I simply don't have time to watch all of their videos. But I keep thinking about it. Like I have to dedicate, maybe find like 4 hours a week and try to stick to one particular person to learn this person, and then try to kind of try to what's the verb? Okay, just invite the person for a conversation, and probably then
Yeah,
learn
if I could,
learn something this way.
if I had like more time, I would want to do that.
Mhm.
I don't know if I can do that. Probably I can't, but I have to think about. But if I had more time, I would like to do something like that. Yeah, just like you said, just like you said, study these people and try to invite some people into the channel, basically have a podcast, have a conversation with them about these topics, and create like this global community of
Yeah, I guess it's
ideas.
a good way of collaboration, right? You just
Yeah, that was why I started having conversations in the first place in person. That was the idea, and it was to create a community, and
mhm,
and and have conversations, create a community, have ideas, explore ideas,
mhm,
and that it's, yeah, it's like that's what that was all about. And now it continues with the online, with YouTube, which is just as valuable. So it has pros and cons, but it's just as valuable. It's like we have a real life and an online life right now, right? And
mhm,
they're kind of
mhm,
connected, but everybody is living in real life and also in an online life. It's crazy. It wasn't like that. It was like it's like in the 90s, like you watch like The Matrix or something, and it was so mysterious, like this, like still remember like watching The Matrix in 1999. I think it came out, and You know, it was like you had Neo, and he was like
Mhm.
this like boring worker by day and this hacker by night. But everybody's a little bit like, not hackers, but they have their online life, you know, and their personal life now, you know, and it might be completely different. It's certainly not as exciting as Neo's, but it's kind of like that for everybody, just less interesting, I
There's a
guess.
certain social role which you play differently from your other social roles.
Yeah, you're a different person, you know. You go like on your Facebook and your Instagram and on your video games and your streams and your chats and your YouTube, you know, like you might have a channel. Like people, it might be, sometimes it's very closely connected, sometimes it's very separate, you know, but
Mhm.
everybody seems to have both of these existences, which is like a real, it's a completely different, like, dimension to the human
Yeah,
experience, you
sure,
know.
sure.
If you think about it, like, we've lived for hundreds of thousands of years, and just now we discovered this completely different dimension to people's existence, which is crazy.
Yeah, I view it as an opportunity to build a character. So, for example, what's going on now on YouTube? So, like, we're having a conversation, and I'm trying to separate myself, what I call myself, from
Yeah,
this character. So for me, I call these videos, it's kind of avatars of myself, but
right.
I also view it as a character, which
So
I
you want it to be different, you want
yeah,
it to
no,
be a
which
little
I'm
bit
working on. So
separate.
basically, it's like a movie, and I'm watching this movie. And, oh, okay, I don't like this. As you say, like you hate watching yourself talking, right?
Yeah,
But it's still
yeah.
like your character, and that's basically do not pay attention to your character. And I'm trying to pay attention as much as possible and to make this character like look, not just look good, but to be a good person. Like, maybe not a good person, but to be real at least.
Right.
Yeah, and as regards to these dimensions, recently well, not just recently, I clarified this idea when I started writing in Russian, like a few weeks ago. I you divided virtual world or the internet, online world, and offline world, and I found a new dimension. It's actually not new; people were there all the time before. It's like in your thoughts, and it's a kind of reflection. So it's a particular way of thinking when you, for example, you live your life, you do some actions. But this dimension is when you go back, and I usually use writing for this purpose. So you go back and you analyze your experience, but it's not just stupid analysis when you simply describe what was going on, but you do some kind of creative analysis. For example, I made like recently, I've wrote 3 articles, and each article it's this type of creative analysis of a conversation. And for me, it takes like each of these articles, it took me 6 to 8 hours to write. And during these 6 or 8 hours, what did I do? I just placed myself at the beginning of the conversation uh, in my thought. And then I just went through it, trying to write down like the main steps, but also trying to uh, incorporate recent thoughts into this description. So it's not just simply describing, oh, we met there, we started talking about this, then talked about that, etc. It's like, oh, okay, there was this idea. And, I was, while I was going to the club, for example, I was thinking about this idea. And then there's few paragraphs about this idea. Then I come to the club, there's a conversation, and I met this person. And then I go aside and talk about this person, like what I think about him or her, when was the last time we met, and it's like you immerse yourself in this thinking. And as for me, it's like a dream. So you're dreaming for 6 hours, and then there's like 10 pages. Wow, this is interesting. It's different experience. I had this experience before, but I couldn't formulate it as clearly as I did for like last last few weeks.
Right.
And yeah, but you have to have like lots of free time for that. I mean, it's
Yeah, I mean, it
so
takes time, like you
if you
said, you know, it takes
yeah
time.
if you are busy, it's very hard to find. It's not just you have to have time; you have to have certain like
You know, you
mental
could
energy.
write Vladimir's dialogues, you know, just like Plato's dialogues, you
Yeah,
know.
and that's what I'm doing. But I
Yeah,
have a character for that. So for I like my character, it's Volodymyr Zastavkin. It's a kind of online character which I'm working on. It has its own page on the internet and
Boris?
what? Bor? No, it's Volleybor
Bolibor?
Zastavkin. Yeah, I'll,
Okay.
I'll I'll send you a page. Like,
Bolibor.
yeah,
Okay. So it's a whole new character. It's not Vladimir anymore. It's Bolibor.
yeah, it's kind of online character, but if you know something from Freud, he had this idea of ego, id, and super ego,
Yeah.
where ego is just a person, super ego is kind of you know social, not even social, but okay, some judge, and id, it's basically your animal, animal nature, animal self. And for me, Volodymyr Zastavkin, I'm trying to like think about it as a super ego, kind of
Okay.
an ideal version or some kind of ideal model, which looks down upon real me and tries to do something to change. Like I would say it's interchangeable. I mean, it's not just I'm trying to build this character. I think about it as if it was the higher version of myself, and I try to change myself from the position of this character. It's also
Right.
I'm trying to always change. I try to change the character from my perspective, which I have right now. But
That's an interesting idea. Yeah, I like that. I like that idea. It's like the idea you're building the ideal version, version of yourself
yeah, there was a guy
online.
I probably mentioned him before, like Pessoa, Fernando Pessoa,
Yeah.
one of the most famous. I guess he was Portuguese writer of 20th
Yeah, I
century.
don't think you've mentioned him before. Yeah, it's interesting that like I had to study it because I went to school in Lisbon, so I had to study him quite a bit.
Uh-huh.
He's kind of an important character in Portuguese literature. So
Yeah, yeah,
important writer. So he's featured prominently in school,
uh-huh.
like in especially high school. If you go to high school in Portugal,
Yeah,
Fernando
he had
Pessoa.
like for about 80 characters, like or
True.
something.
Oh yeah, that's why I mentioned. Yeah, exactly. And I knew. Well, it's 80, maybe it's 80, but like I think it comes down to like four is the main ones. Like
Mhm.
I think if I'm not mistaken, he had four, and four different alter
Mm.
egos, I guess,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. He
So
called them like heterononyms. Like
heteronym, heteronym, I
heter,
think it was.
het,
Yeah, in Portuguese. Yeah, that was a long time ago, but
yeah,
yeah, I think that was the word here or something like that. And yeah,
like,
it was I had to study them, it
mhm,
was like studying each one.
mhm.
It's weird. It's like each one was like studying a different writer, right?
Yeah,
And it was
they all have
I actually
different
liked it.
narratives.
No, actually
Mhm.
I didn't like it. I'm lying. But I found it interesting. It was kind
Mhm.
of boring, but I found it interesting too. The differences between them, that was interesting.
I haven't
Because I'm
studied.
not a big poetry guy, unlike you. You would have
Mhm.
been much better at it. I was actually pretty decent in prose, in school. Prose writers, I did well in literature in that usually, but in poetry is not. I did okay, but it wasn't like I'm not a good.
Mhm.
I wasn't good at poetry, but I like the ideas behind it, because Fernando Pessoa is a he has like very deep ideas, behind the poetry. It's not just words. So I
But it
like
wasn't
that.
just poetry. For example, the book I've read was the Book of Disquiet. It's one of the most famous books. The Book of Disquiet. I don't know, have you heard? And it's not
I
poetry,
probably
but
heard of it in Portuguese, but also it was a long time ago
it's
because
very
I was
elegant
in high school.
prose. It's very elegant prose, and the character he is also and he is exactly he is like this neo type guy. So he like in his in his life he is just a cleric, but then he comes home and he just like the genius writer, and
Yeah,
his prose is so beautiful, it's so magnificent, and he understands all of that, and he talks about
yeah.
philosophy, about
Yeah. I
dreaming.
think he has some prose and stuff. Yeah, most of his stuff is poetry, or at least the most famous. But yeah,
Mhm.
he was a very famous writer. Yeah, he's probably the biggest writer, in Portugal. at least from the perspective of the curriculum. He's featured pretty prominently in high school. So
Yeah, in terms of talking about these characters, like indeed, like your alter egos or whatever. So it's interesting to think about taking each your emotion, for example, anger, fear, love, hate, whatever, and trying to build a character who has one particular emotion dominating all the others.
yeah,
Like you must say
and
that
that was part of it. Yeah, one
manifestation of
emotion or one point of view, because
Mhm.
they also embodied his alter egos embodied different traditions, literary traditions, right,
Different
of the time.
styles.
I
Yeah.
don't know when, yeah, different styles. Um, I'm trying to think. I think it was early 20th century, wasn't it, that he wrote?
Yeah,
So
yeah, and
yeah.
he died quite young, like I guess for about 40 years old,
Okay. Yeah. So it was. I think
probably
it was
37.
early 20th century, if I'm not
And he wasn't
mistaken.
famous at his lifetime, but then after his death, they discovered just so much materials in his, wherever he lived,
No, I mean
and
there he wrote a lot. Yeah.
yeah, most of it was published posthumously.
Oh, was it? I didn't even know that, even though
Yeah.
I studied him. Yeah.
Let's get back to our YouTube talk. Uh,
Yeah.
in your
Well, it's
opinion, what
fine.
social forces dominate YouTube?
Say it again.
What kind of social forces dominate YouTube? What do you think about that?
Well, I guess it depends on the stage of YouTube, right? In the beginning, it was a feline force.
Feline? What's that?
Feline. Lots of cat videos.
Okay, okay.
Now it's what? Um, the what's it called? What's it called? The dark web? No, not dark
Dark
web.
web? Yeah, it's
No,
a
no, no, no. It's not the dark web. The IDW or something like that. You know what I'm talking about? The intellectual dark web. How's
yeah,
it?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Um, I don't even know. I think like in terms of culture that I come across with, I hear a lot about,
Mhm.
intellectual dark web people, whatever that
Can,
means.
can, can you can you name somebody?
Yeah, yeah, like Joe Rogan, and Jordan
Mhm.
Peterson, those guys. I come across like lots of Ben Shapiro stuff.
Mhm.
A lot of it is kind of like this new, I don't even know what to call it, but like like sort of like right wing, or like new
Mhm.
conservative, anti-liberal stuff, for younger people, focus on
Yeah, I wouldn't call it
a
Joe
lot of
Rogan actually.
young
Mhm.
young like males, white males, young white males. Very obviously, American culture is featured very prominently on YouTube because it's an American company, um, so I think it globalizes things, but at the same time, YouTube is also good because it offers people the tools to be their own, they are creators as well. The YouTube is a platform that it's very interesting. I mean, I'm not so sure it's necessarily very it has impacted the world necessarily in the best way possible so far,
Mhm.
but it really is a tool, and we make out of it what we can, and what we want, and it's a great tool. I think in the beginning it wasn't fully explored, but now obviously, people even like ourselves, like ourselves, we are contributing, and we are expressing our interests and our views, um so everybody has a voice. That's what I like about it,
Mhm.
even
Mhm.
though your voice might be a small voice, or not a lot of people might listen to you. But still, everybody has a chance. Everybody has a chance. It's some sort of chance, to to say what you want to say, right? So I see YouTube. I see lots of possibilities for YouTube. I think it can be even better than it is right now, certainly, but I think it's a great tool for self-expression and for the democratization of media. So
Mhm.
unfortunately, a lot of it, when you let people, when it's so unregulated like YouTube, I guess, like for example, you have all these people in YouTube. There's so much trash on YouTube, like all these people making careers out of, say, like the QAnon. Have you heard of that? The QAnon thing. They were
No,
like, you
no,
haven't heard of that?
no.
Like, really? Yeah, you should research it. Well, maybe don't actually.
Okay.
But it's called QAnon, basically conspiracy theories.
Oh,
let's
okay.
let's
Yeah.
make it
I
let's
know.
let's make it more broad, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Conspiracy theories, like a huge chunk of YouTube seems to be dedicated to
Yeah.
conspiracy
Yeah. I can
theories
understand.
and
I can.
misinformation,
Yeah.
and it's very unfortunate, because that is something that is actively derailing people's intellectual growth. Like they get exposed to this information. The problem with YouTube is that it's information that is not verified. Like even in this video, obviously we're trying to have a conversation that is as sincere as possible, but you can like do a video like this and a podcast, or just talking to a camera yourself, and you can say like whatever you want to say, regardless of its value, regardless of its truth value, regardless of if you have any sort of corroboration for your information, the information that you're giving people, if you have any sort of proof of any allegations that you make. So you can, yeah, you're liable to, there are some laws and stuff, but for the most part, people can say lies all the time on YouTube, and can produce completely false intellectual statements, or factual statements. So that's the problem with YouTube. Presents the challenge of unchallenged it presents the challenge of unchallenged information, and that's a very dangerous thing. But it
Yeah. I
is what it
think
is.
you see. I think it
Pros and cons.
as you say, after it attracts attention, for example, this false information, and there are lots of viewers and subscribers, this false information gets valuable in some sense in minds of some people. And then I just had recently kind of similar experience. So I was one guy shared with me a video from some famous YouTube channel on Nietzsche, and well, I responded kind of. I said, "This is just a crap. And don't want to watch something real." And I sent him a video from one of my favorite YouTube philosopher, whom I watched for a couple of years. And but this YouTube philosopher, he has almost no followers, like 30,000 subscribers. Whereas that guy, that channel, it had like probably a million subscribers. And the point is that people evaluate information based on the amount of subscribers, the amount of
Right.
likes, and some
Yeah.
some teenager make very seemingly authentic and profound videos just by simply reading some articles from Wikipedia and adding some, something else there, and it attracts attention, and then other people go and tell you that you may study philosophy, like read all read many books by some philosopher, and then you are faced with a person who basically tells you that he knows better about any philosopher because he watched just a short 10-minute video on YouTube. And then
Yeah, you
and
YouTube.
then he even tells you like don't watch this guy, he is dangerous, like this your Nietzsche guy, he is terrible, stay away from him, he just not just Nietzsche, but other philosophers as well.
Yeah, I mean, YouTube gives you an illusion. I think that example illustrates how YouTube gives you an illusion of knowledge.
Hmm.
It can give you real knowledge, but it can
Yeah,
give you an illusion of knowledge as well. And it's hard to tell them apart, especially if you're a kid. Kids are not very smart. So, well, it's not that they're not smart, but often they're kind of
kind of naive, right?
they're naive or they're not
Yeah.
uneducated, because they haven't had time to reflect and to learn, so they're just sponges, right? Absorbing, whatever they come across with, and they think they know better, right? Like that's kind of like you're a kid because you don't have anything to compare it to.
Yeah, especially some
Uh,
authoritative voice very clearly explains you what
Yeah,
things
and then
are.
imagine you're 16 years old and you come across like Jordan Peterson's videos, and
Mhm.
this guy has like 1 million subscribers or whatever it is that he has, and you have all this community of people that say, "Oh, this guy's the best. This guy's the best,"
Mhm.
and oh yeah, and then it's like a cult.
Yeah.
YouTube forms like these cults, because it's people that reaffirm, like there's a lots of reaffirmation, right? People like confirm each other's beliefs without any grounds to do that, but they confirm each other's beliefs. And this, you can create, basically, if you get enough people going, you can create a cult about anything,
Yeah.
about pretty much anything you want. It can be like that there are lizard people running the world, which I think it is one of these cults. It doesn't matter like how silly it is. If you get like 10,000 people believing in this to some extent, and then
Mhm.
they'll like confirm each other's beliefs, then it's like it's massive, and it's true. It's for those people, it's true that lizard people run the world. It doesn't matter whatever like silly thing it is. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It could be that Scarlett Johansson is like a witch. It doesn't matter, like whatever it is that you start with, how absurd it might be, like if you can make some people believe it and you can grow into like 10,000 subscribers or 20,000, there will be some sort of community that will believe these things. And it's I mean, that's extremely dangerous, like we live in a world of misinformation, and YouTube is a part of that.
Yeah,
But I
but
mean,
like,
what are you gonna do? We just have to figure out ways to like limit that, I guess.
well, on the other side, maybe these people who try intentionally misinform others, well, maybe they just need, maybe they'll figure out something by themselves in the future. I mean, people like run YouTube channels for various reasons, right? For somebody, just to have fun. For somebody, it's to make money. For somebody, to, develop a cult. Yeah, see, I don't think restrictions and limits are actually necessary. Yeah, it may be dangerous for some people, but on the other side, it teaches us like something.
Yeah, it's kind of the Wild West, but there are some cases, for example, um like I'll give you an example. I mean, this is a very anecdotal example, but I do know that YouTube kind of like tries to limit some things. For example, I did a video on I don't even remember if it was a philosophy podcast. I think so, or something like that. I don't know. I was talking about Biden winning the election. This was when so that wasn't what the video was about. But we talked a little. I don't think it was. I think it was like maybe the one of the early philosophy podcasts, and it was just like a conversation. We touched on a number of different things. One of them was Biden had just won the election, I think it was, and we talked about it. I mean, I was actually even talking to a friend that is a conservative, but I mentioned it. Yeah, Biden won the election and all that, and then someone on the comments said, "Well, no, you're just like this fake media bullshit,
Mhm,
whatever. Biden didn't win
mhm.
the election; it was a steal, and Trump is still the president, and whatever. Like." all the craziness that happened after Biden was declared the winner, and YouTube censored that comment. I didn't do anything, but
Mhm.
YouTube censored that comment saying, "Oh no, results of the elections have been posted. Biden has been declared the winner." So there is a little bit of YouTube tries to, because those moments are, those things are dangerous. If you have like this an actual misinformation, like, because we have systems of government in a lot of countries that are very fragile. They're democracies are very fragile. They depend on, to a certain degree, information. A democracy can't really exist without information, like more or less
Yeah, but
faithful information.
yeah, what I'm trying to say is like you don't need to censor it. You may provide the better information, or you may criticize it, or you may
Yeah,
try.
like that, like that. I think that's a good way to do it. Listen, this is the information that is being posted by the newspapers, like, and
Mhm.
by the official mechanisms. He has been declared the winner. So I think, yeah, I think you have a good point. It's not even about censoring, it's about fighting misinformation, because you can say misinformation is very easy to create, right? You can say
Mhm.
anything about
Mhm.
anything.
Mhm.
Like, it doesn't really matter what you want. Like, you can say lies, like, everybody can produce lies about whatever. Like, you just need to say, creating the truth is hard. Creating falsehood is very easy. So that's the problem there.
Yeah, we see
uh,
about truth. There's so much like these people who believe that lizards people run the world. They think this is true, and this is what must be known. That everybody has to know
but
that.
they believe
But
it's true, but it's not true. That's the thing.
yeah, but you see, the people for them it's true.
But it's not true, though. It's only true, like you said, for them. But it's like, if I say 2 + 2 is 5, even if I believe it, yeah, sure, you can say it's
Yeah,
true
but
for
you
me,
have
but
to
it's not
still
true.
understand that
It's
for
false.
them, like when you think about these people, you have to place yourself in their minds,
No, no,
right?
I
And then
understand. I
and then you have
understand.
to understand that these people really believe that this is true, and they think that you, in the same way, are mistaken, not believing this true, and that's why they try to spread it. And that's why there's so many other people who are believing that, because they say, okay, look, everybody says it's false, but we know that this is true, and then they start giving you hundreds and thousands of reasons why it's true. And you can't even argue with them, because you say this, like, your reasons are irrelevant. Whatever you say is just, it's not about what we're discussing. But they tell you, no, you have to believe that this is true.
And then they
And
can point to YouTube videos as a source of
yeah,
authority.
yeah. And I call a comment in the YouTube video and say, this comment
You can't you can't look at
confirms.
the actual you can't look at the actual facts or the actual information in the real world, like, but you can find the truth in these YouTube videos somewhere. You can find the truth that about the lizard people in the YouTube. There you'll see the real truth. They'll expose the lizard
Yeah, I
people.
mean, the more you try to shut them up, shut them down, the stronger their motivation to fight against you becomes. So the point is maybe just to kind of ignore them, or try to find a better way. But anyway, like, we're not trying to decide these issues, I guess. It's not our point here, just some thoughts. So
That was one conversation that we've had throughout the year, though.
yeah,
It's a conversation that we'll continue to have. Information versus misinformation, right? It's a very,
yeah, I think it's an interesting
especially if you're
topic.
doing discussions on YouTube. I mean, you can't avoid that
Yeah,
conversation.
I think just misinformation is an interesting topic. I never, like, I guess I'll include in my list of topics which I'd like to research, and have a conversation later. Yeah, misinformation. That's interesting. Now I'm studying games. This is my topic for this week. And the next week it's values. And also I want to study a little bit statistics.
This,
Yeah, I
okay.
guess after statistics I can take this misinformation and try to figure out what it is. But anyway, let's move on.
Sure.
So, and it actually relates a lot to what we just discussed right now. So what does what's going on YouTube reflect what's going on in the world? or it's vice versa?
It reflects to a certain extent, like I mean, this actually relates directly to what we're saying, like there's the YouTube perception of things that are happening in the world, and then there's the real world. But yeah, I mean, there's stuff on YouTube that is not necessarily related to the real world, but there's stuff that is content that is being produced that is the direct consequence of whatever is happening in the real world, either in a more factual way or in a more misinformation kind of way. But yeah, I mean, certainly.
Let's try to look at this question from different angles. So, for example, this dichotomy between physics and consciousness, or matter and consciousness. The philosophers argue, like,
Yeah.
what causes what? Like, does consciousness causes whatever we see, or it's vice versa? If we try to frame the question in these terms, like, does what's going on YouTube cause changes in the world, or what's going on in the world cause changes on whatever people discuss on YouTube? In what's the proportion, like, in your opinion? What do you think about it?
No, I mean, certainly it's a cycle, right? So yeah, I think both things are true. But yeah, I mean, the proportion, I don't think YouTube is, at least not yet. I mean, it's not that powerful that it can enact,
Well, I think it's very
immediate
powerful.
change. No, it's powerful, but I'm not gonna say that, well, YouTube dictates what happens in the world. I think it's part of it. It's part of it. There are also other factors, like the fact that the Taliban won the war in Afghanistan. You know, YouTube didn't dictate that. This is just an example, right? I mean, there are things in the world that, a lot of the things in the world happen outside of YouTube's influence. But YouTube has, I would say YouTube has a big influence out of all the media in the world right now, which is a lot more than YouTube. Obviously, you have to add what, movies, you have to add Netflix, you have to add Facebook, Spotify, Instagram, Twitter. So YouTube is just part of it. But I would say YouTube was like what, 5% of influences 5% of what happens in the world, 5-10% in some direct or indirect way. So I think mostly the world informs YouTube, but certainly it has it has a big influence. I mean, if you're looking at things that have influence in the world, yeah, I mean, YouTube is probably, obviously you'd have to look at data. You'd need someone with a PhD to spend 10 years, 15 years looking at the data to have an
Oh,
actual
just your opinion,
the
how you
matter.
see it.
But it seems, from what I can gather, that, yeah, I don't know. If I had to guess, I mean, I would say YouTube is responsible for 5%, and
okay.
then the world is responsible for the other 95% that informs YouTube. But
So
yeah,
you said that one of the major forces on YouTube is intellectual dark web, right? And so we may say that what's going on YouTube,
I
there are
think
some,
so.
yeah, there are some people like Jordan Peterson, Joe Rogan, and they try to do some, whatever they're doing. What's going on in the world?
It's hard to say, right? It's hard to say because
from your, like, in your, like, let's say, filter bubble, what's
because
going on
the interesting thing
in your
about
world?
YouTube, and it's so novel, right, is that if you ask me what is the influence of television in the world, like, and if you ask me questions about television in the 80s or in the 90s, probably in the 80s we were too young, but in the 90s I could have, probably, if I were smart enough back then, I think maybe I would have been, I'm not sure, but I could probably give you a fairly accurate answer. Now, if you ask me about YouTube, I mean, come on, it's not possible, because we can give general answers and everything. But the interesting thing about television and YouTube is, like, television, your experience and my experience would be the same. Nowadays, with YouTube, your experience and my experience and the experience of pretty much anyone else is going to be different.
Well, on
Because,
television, there's also a variety of, you may watch
yeah, but it's
different
not, I mean,
channels,
but it's not
different
comparable. I
programs.
mean, YouTube, like, there is such a huge amount of content in YouTube,
Yeah, and
and
everybody's a creator here, right? Also,
everybody
so,
is watching something different, and
and
then
everybody
there's
also creates, and there's a feedback. It's not just watching. You are a
yeah,
consumer, and also
no,
you're.
yeah. I mean, I would imagine the majority of people are consumers mostly, but yeah, I mean, not me and not you, but yeah,
Well, I think it's changing. I mean,
it's changing. It's
more and more
probably
people
also
want
changing.
to make stuff, and
Want to create, yeah, but
there's so many creative
yeah, so
communities which spread
and,
this. Yeah.
and then you have like these mega things that might, more, a lot of people are aware of these things, and then they can discuss it just like we used to be able to discuss television in the 90s, right? Like Joe Rogan would be an example of that, that I think he had 10 million subscribers or something like that. That's
Mhm.
already a sizable, a very, if someone has even a million, no, even a million, I don't even know if it's enough, but like
Mhm.
if
Yeah,
someone
10
has like
million. Yeah.
10 million, then at that point that YouTube channel is a cultural force, and people are aware of it. And then, yeah, and then you would discuss it like a TV channel, not TV channel, but TV show, like an evening TV show back in the day of television, right?
Mhm.
Like when during the elections in the US, Joe Rogan actually had like some of the candidates over in his podcast, and that I think was more influential than any television
Mhm.
interview, with those. So you have those forces that are really big on YouTube, but for the most part, this is what great about YouTube, but also what's bad and what's dangerous is that people have a very personalized feed, right? So and it's like self-reinforcing, right? If you watch a conspiracy, that's probably the most dangerous thing about it is that if you watch one conspiracy video, you'll keep watching a lot of conspiracy. You'll have a lot of conspiracy videos in your feed, so YouTube will reinforce whatever it is that you watched.
Mhm.
Like I recently I watched some Fox News stuff, and then I kept getting Fox News
Mhm.
uh like
Yeah.
stuff afterwards, even though I don't want
Yeah.
for the Fox News things,
Yeah.
but I keep getting them on YouTube, and I was like, please
I wish
stop YouTube, but I keep getting this.
I watched criminal psychology recently, like some psychopaths interviews with the psychopaths. I watched the series Mindhunter probably a few months ago,
Oh,
and
it's a great show.
yeah, and then I start just looking for YouTube some videos with these interviews, and yeah, YouTube just sends me
And it
one
just
after
keeps
another.
getting
Yeah,
lots
yeah,
of
and they're
them.
interesting.
Yeah,
I mean, there's some catchy titles. Oh, I don't want to watch it, but oh, it's so
it's
interesting.
like it's like if you go to a restaurant and have some pizza, then YouTube wants you to have pizza for every day, afterwards.
Mhm. Mhm. But still, like I'm trying to clarify like how much your view on the world is determined by what are you doing on YouTube and what are you seeing on YouTube.
I think
So
it depends. I think it depends on the person.
yeah, but in it's like
Honestly, that's
for you personally.
for me,
Yeah,
it's
what's going on in the world?
part of it, but it's part of it. But I wouldn't say. I would say YouTube is about 10%.
Hmm.
10,
Hmm.
maybe 20%. If
Hmm.
we're talking about
Hmm.
informing my vision of the world,
Hmm.
I would say it's about 20%, because I am a person that, like, I don't rely just on YouTube, personally, like
Hmm.
because I have a subscription, to The Economist,
Hmm.
that's mostly how I get my news. They also have an app.
Hmm.
Yes, this is a very good magazine in English, but it's also kind of expensive. So yeah, it is. I don't know if it's worth it, but that's a good magazine, and that's just keeping up with The Economist alone is difficult, to be honest with you. It's because there's so much information out there. The Economist spews a lot of information at you, because there's every day there's news, right? And then you get a weekly magazine or whatever, so it's a lot. So there's the YouTube, there's the Economist, then there's I drive, I go in my car, there's the radio, which is another source of stuff for me. Then there's movies, there's Netflix, there's HBO, there's the people I talk to, there's stuff that I read on Google, that I Google stuff. There's Wikipedia for me is a big source of knowledge. Honestly, I know that, I'm gonna sound stupid saying this, but I go on Wikipedia, look up stuff, so I mean, I wouldn't say I'm just YouTube. I would say I think it would be a mischaracterization if I said it would, for me it's more, but I would say 20 to 25%. Sure.
Yeah, but I guess you may
YouTube
measure,
is big.
Yeah, you may measure it by how much time do you spend on YouTube watching stuff and making stuff, and also like thinking about this. For me, I'm not as I don't listen radio. I don't read any magazines, but I'm reading Wikipedia, yeah, and I'm studying different topics every week, and I just read lots of books and just some articles about these topics. They're not related to what's going on currently in the world, but still you get lots of like information which may be useful to understand what's going on in the world. But yeah, okay. So I guess we got almost to the end. Who is this last question? Who is the wisest person on YouTube, in your opinion? Or maybe a list of wise person, like 3 or 5.
No, I'm gonna give you one.
Okay.
Vladimir Svetashev. That's the wisest. I'm kind of joking. I have no idea who the wisest person on YouTube is, but I think I am fascinated by you, Vladimir, because you're like the modern philosopher hermit that is just dedicated to philosophy. You're like an alter ego without an alter ego, like you don't need an alter ego. I don't think. I think Vladimir Svetashev is like a movie character. You're like a modern you're 21st century Dostoevsky character, So I was just telling you, sorry, not just telling you, I was just telling a friend about you. When was it? Well, I don't remember the date, but it was recently. I met with a friend a couple of days ago, 3 days ago, I think it was, and I met with him, and I was telling him about Vladimir, like this guy who's absolutely consumed by this desire to absorb knowledge, and is just completely committed to this pursuit. And I've never been committed to a pursuit in my life, really, to that extent. So it's and he was like, oh yeah, that is fantastic. I would like to meet this guy, because
is he a philosopher? Is he a philosopher? Like, is he interested in philosophy?
He's very philosophical, but not necessarily like, I don't know if I would go as far as saying that, he has many interests, but yeah, I mean, I would say, he's very philosophical. He likes to think about, certainly I have good conversations with him. Many good conversations.
I may do a podcast with him if you're
sure. I'll ask him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. But seriously, like among these guys whom you watch on YouTube, like whom you
no man I was being serious. I watch, look, honestly, if I had to choose one that is famous, probably I'm not gonna say, so I would say I watch a lot of Joe Rogan. I'm not gonna say he's the wisest, not at all. I think he has interesting guests, and he interacts with them in a very interesting way. So certainly, in terms of a podcast that I like, not for every episode, but when he has interesting guests on.
Yeah, name somebody of these guests.
Well, like Bernie Sanders, for example, that was an interesting one. Andrew Yang, that I met. Mostly because not mostly because of Joe Rogan, but it was part of it that I met with Andrew Yang when he came to Minnesota.
Mhm.
I not I didn't talk to him a lot, but I volunteered in one of his campaign events because I think he was a very good candidate.
Mhm.
Well, he was like he was like talking about universal basic income, about technology, about automation. I think that was he kind of introduced that discourse to the general public. I thought that was very interesting to do, not necessarily as a just as a political candidate, but it was something people weren't talking about those things before, and I think that was interesting. And he went on Joe Rogan's podcast, and that was the first time I heard about some of those issues in a deep way. I really enjoyed I enjoy some of like the business guys like Elon Musk. I enjoy some of the more creative guys like Edward Norton, like Tarantino.
Mhm.
And then he has very interesting conversations with some academics as well. I enjoy, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, I think I've listened to a lot of interviews with Neil deGrasse Tyson, so I get the hosts confused, but I think he was on Joe Rogan. Um, so there isn't a podcast that I can think of that has a more varied list of guests, right?
Mhm.
Like it can go from a total idiot to the smartest man in the world, honestly, like his list of guests. So it's interesting because of that. And then honestly, I like to watch videos if we're talking about wise people. I love watching these Bertrand Russell videos and stuff like that,
Mhm.
like some of these old philosophers that are dead, some of them that are not dead, you know. But if we're talking about the wisest, yeah, I mean, I don't know. My answer is going to be Bertrand Russell, even though he's not alive anymore. But
Well,
and he never actually interacted with YouTube or had a YouTube channel. Like if I had to talk about
as a character on YouTube, he is alive. I mean,
he's alive. He's
yeah,
very much alive. Like there are lots of
yeah,
Bertrand Russell videos
yeah.
that you can watch on YouTube, and I have well, not all of them certainly, but I watched some, and I mean, he strikes me as a. I also read his most famous book. What's it called? Problems of Philosophy. I always get it confused. Problems or Principles of Philosophy. I read that book, but I think I read some of his essays, and I like listening to Bertrand Russell. Also, the way he speaks, man, he's
Mhm. Mhm.
like he
No,
comes to you he's a wise man, like when you listen to him, he has like a wise voice. Like it's like going to the wise man, like, and you just listen about like wise things about the world, and you try to learn. Like it's not something that you dispute so much. It's
yeah,
like you just try to learn.
I listened to a couple of his videos, but I don't remember like his voice. Now I'm trying to
Yeah, he has a very
remember.
like
Right.
British educated voice, but also calm, old, he's an old voice.
Mhm.
um and then also Alan Watts, obviously that's a classic if we're talking about like these like powerful
Yeah,
voices.
I've listened to him recently. I was studying Dao De Jing. It was the topic for my conversation, and I listened his like very long speech, maybe a few hours.
Yeah, he has some fantastic speeches.
Yeah.
I love my favorite person in the 20th century is Winston Churchill. I love his
Mhm.
voice as well. I love how he talks. Even
Mhm.
though he seems kind of drunk or something, I don't know what it is. Have you heard a speech by Winston
Yeah,
Churchill?
yeah, but again,
He's a
hardly
he's
remember.
a good example of a great speaker, a great English speaker. Like
I
if
was
people are
I was studying public speaking last year, and I watched all the videos by American presidents and also British prime
Winston
ministers.
Churchill is better than all the American presidents, even though there are some good, very good
Mhm.
American president. Like Barack Obama is very good.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
I would say Trump also was like as a speaker, he was very convincing. Not in terms of the content,
yes, he was
because
convincing, but I
yeah,
wouldn't say, he's not a good English like he's not a good example of a fantastic uh, public speaker.
Yeah, but
Like
also,
he's very convincing, but
no,
he's
no,
not a sophisticated speaker, right? It's different.
well, maybe I just couldn't see all nuances. But for me, Barack Obama, yeah, I remember I just watched like after Reagan in
Yeah,
90s, they stopped reading from papers and started memorizing their speeches. So they always looked at the people before they, all of them read from the paper. And I was thinking, oh,
right.
like this guy, like the first was Bill Clinton. And I was like, well, Bill
Yeah,
Clinton looks so different from the previous guy because he just speaks to the audience.
he
And
just
then
speaks
there
to the
was,
audience.
and there was Bush, and I like Bush even more than Bill Clinton. Not even more, but you know, since he was also speaking to the audience, it felt
Right.
it felt much more kind of authentic. And Barack Obama, yeah. And then I was thinking, I actually don't know much about American politics, but I've heard a
Well,
lot of. No,
I'm
no,
just speaking.
yeah,
I like Barack Obama, but I was talking more about his delivery. You know, the way he
uh-huh,
speaks and his words. You know, I think
yeah,
his speeches are fantastic. More than the content. I mean, the content. You know, I can agree or disagree, but
yeah. I
that
guess the
wasn't really
content
what I
is
was
always
talking about.
it feels it's always the same, just catchy words, cliches, and no,
You know,
not always, but most of the time. You know what I
but
see.
I would say Barack Obama is not my favorite. My favorite is JFK.
Mhm.
JFK, I really, I mean, he has fantastic speeches. You know,
Yeah, but
have you
still
listened to
really.
his
I
speeches?
actually no. For me, feels
JFK is fantastic.
a
Yeah,
little bit
JFK
weird.
is really good.
His sentences kind of he speaks. He distinct like no. For me, it feels like kind of unnatural when I was listening to JFK. Like he had this kind of special way of like
I get what you're saying, but I like it. But
yeah,
maybe you
yeah,
don't
yeah.
like it. Yeah.
In terms of likeness, yeah, sure. But anyway, so I think.
Also, but let me say, out of the living people, Harari, I love his books, and
Mhm,
he is like fairly active on YouTube. Um, at least I
mhm,
get a lot of his videos.
mhm.
I like Harari.
I remember just yeah, in relation to Harari, we watched some video
I'm
with
a little Harari fanboy.
yeah,
No,
we watched some
not
video
really, but I like him.
we watched some video with Harari, and he said gra- grammatically instead of dramatically, and we
Oh
had
yeah.
had a short laugh. And he's not a native speaker as well. He's not.
No, he's from Israel, but
Yeah,
and I mean he's not a he speaks well. Like
yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah,
like
yeah.
he's
But
in his interviews is clear and everything. But obviously, you know, like not being a native speaker, it's always harder, you know. But no, but I think he's a great speaker. I think he has great ideas and
mhm,
uh he's an even better writer, to be fair. But his interviews are also pretty good.
mhm. Okay, Bruno, thank you so much for participating in the conversation. I hope we'll next year we'll see more, you know, more videos, more conversations, probably more subscribers, attention from public.
It's okay, you
Yeah.
know, hopefully, but you know, if it doesn't happen, it doesn't
Well, at
happen.
least
It's okay. We're just
we'll
doing our thing, man. We're just doing our thing
yeah,
and trying to,
I
we're
think
all
we'll
from like different places. We're in different places in life. But we all have, we like, I like people that like having good conversations, I guess, you
yeah, I
know,
think
so
we'll certainly one thing which we'll see it's the improvement of the content next year.
hopefully we'll try.
Okay. Okay. So I think we're gonna stop here.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me, Vladimir.
Mhm.